Hi guys. So tonight we have a group of people coming to talk about something really amazing that they've developed, really amazing technology. So we have Josh Richards. Keep forgetting your name. I'm sorry, man. I remember this one. Josh Richards and the Helena team out of University of Western Australia, who have developed some technology. I think that's it there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it there. And what it is it creates oxygen for Mars, and they're going to be flying it on the Mars 1 lander.
I love that you're looking at me trying to extract knowledge.
I'm looking. I'm trying to read your mind. I'm sorry. Mars 1 lander, and I probably can't do as good a job explaining it as they can, so I'm going to give it to them. So yeah, thanks guys for coming.
Thank you. Right, cheers. Yeah. First and foremost, I suppose, thank you all for having us. I contacted Sebastian a month or so back, and yeah, it was great to have him turn around and say, come along to OrbitOz. So, thank you guys all for having us here. First and foremost, we can skip the video. First and foremost, we'll hit the nail on the head right from the start. My name is Josh Richards. I'm one of the 100 people who are currently shortlisted to the Mars 1 project. Say what you will about my life choices, everyone else has so far. That's fine. There's currently 7 Aussies that are still in the running for it. It's myself, Diane McGrath down in Victoria as well, and there's 5 Queenslanders. So I don't know what they're saying about Queensland tourism, but every cricket is trying to get out right now. Anyway, ultimately what we're dealing with here is about trying to create the stepping stones in order to actually put people on Mars. While a lot of people turn around and say that Mars 1 is very audacious, that they're very aggressive with their timelines, they're unreasonable what they're trying to achieve, ultimately they're trying to put the stepping stones in place to actually achieve people living on the surface of Mars. So much of what we're talking about tonight is one of those very, very early precursor stages. So before we start launching people to Mars, obviously you need to learn how to live on the surface of Mars while you're still here. So that's quite clearly not Mars, blue skies, green plants, oxygen, fairly critical elements to keeping people alive in the first place. For people like myself, if I do get shortlisted into the 24 that will undergo the full-time training for about 10 to 12 years, we'll be spending most of our time working and living in something like that. We'll be training as engineers and doctors and dentists and all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff. But we'll be doing it primarily in isolation, locked away, seeing how we work together in teams of 4, and essentially seeing how good housemates we are. Because ultimately Mars 1 can teach you to do whatever you need to be, a doctor, be an engineer, all that sort of stuff. What they can't teach you to be is not be a jerk. Because ultimately it's about people getting along with each other. If you're a capable learner, you can learn all the skills you need to. If you're a massive arsehole, no one's going to want to go to Mars with you. So that's what this is going to be testing. The next step for us, and probably the most critical element with regard to the payload that we're involved with, is Mars 1's 2020 lander. Now this is based on NASA's 2008 Phoenix lander. It's using exactly the same infrastructure that Lockheed Martin developed for NASA, exactly the same base frame, except the payloads are being changed, and there's a few different technologies that are being tested as well. So for those of you that have seen the 2008 lander, you'll notice that it's still got the same round solar panels on either side, still got the scooping arm for testing soil and things like that. What is different is this roll-out solar panel. One of the critical pieces of hardware that Mars 1's trying to develop at the moment is flexible thin-film solar panels. Essentially, we're going to need a fair bit of solar power while we're on the surface. The best way to get it to the surface of Mars is to have it all rolled up, ready to go, so when we get there, we roll it out and start providing power to the colony. One of the other interesting things what Mars 1 was trying to achieve with this particular lander was offering up different space for different organisations to place their experiments on. They've offered it one particular segment of the lander that was open to a university competition, which is where we came in and started to get involved with things. But essentially, the primary role of this lander was to test those thin film solar panels to prove that where they land the lander, there's a large amount of water, and then again, testing it through testing the scooper that they've got on the front there, running it through, testing it and determining how much water is on board, and essentially a platform for testing other technologies that will be included and involved with actually putting people on the surface of Mars. So if we roll on to the next one, once we've identified an appropriate spot, once we've worked out that there's sufficient water where we want to land. It's about sending supplies. Now, one of the other interesting pieces of hardware and technologies that have been discussed is the landing side of things. Quite a few will know exactly how difficult it is to try and land things on Mars. But ultimately, Mars One's working with Lockheed Martin right now to trial a range of different landing technologies. Their first focus will be sending the supplies. It will be followed by the life support systems. It will also be followed on by the rovers. Rover technologies is another thing that's being worked on. Mars One essentially wants to set a couple of rovers with a couple of trailers, because while we might land these capsules safely on the surface of Mars, they're not going to land exactly where we need them to be. So we need to be able to move them around and hook them up to set up a full-size colony. So that means building rovers bigger than what we built previously as well. Going on from there, the idea is we have this colony set up. Before anyone starts launching to Mars, the idea is to have a colony fully functional, solar panels rolled out from the bottom, nice big living units at the back. You can see these white caterpillar things that we've got sticking out the back. About 3,000 litres of water, about 800 litres of oxygen, about 800 litres of mixed gas as well as a fully functional habitat running at 21% oxygen and about 79% nitrogen and argon. Going on from there, 4 idiots, and hopefully I'm one of them, will be strapped inside a tin can and hurtled through the darkness of space for 7 months. If we scroll on, most of you will know about all the mechanics and that side of things, but obviously you don't try and launch to Mars while it's on the other side of the sun. We'll potentially be using a Hohmann transfer where it is very close to being on the other side of the sun, but not quite. It's essentially the easiest way to go from point A to point B using all the mechanics with the lowest delta V. But as I said, 7 months locked away and something like that. The windows obviously change with different alignments. The alignment that we're looking at will be launching in September 2026 and landing on the surface of Mars around April 2027. If you have a look at this, you can see on the front there, you've got our landing capsule. It's been modelled at this point on the Dragon capsules. Chances are we're not going to use that. Most of the discussions that are going on at the moment are being done with Lockheed Martin. So while graphics might reflect the idea of using Dragon capsules from SpaceX, chances are it's going to be developed by Lockheed Martin. The transit habitat in the middle, however, has been developed by Christian von Engstrom from Copenhagen Suborbitals, and we've just got 2 generic rockets on the back of it. Again, the launch systems, the transit systems, those sort of things are all being provided by contractors. So the pictures you see may not be the end product. Ultimately, we've got 12 years to work towards this, so things still change. But obviously, the aim is to try and get people living on the surface of Mars. There is one tiny little step in between getting to Mars in a little spaceship and having people cruising around at the top, and that's obviously the landing side of things. As we probably discussed before, Mars has got enough atmosphere that you can burn up, but not enough atmosphere to essentially slow you down. So, just checking, Andre, this is the Curiosity rover?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. There's been some discussion about the changing videos at different times. But many of you will know about the Curiosity rover that landed in August 2012. Again, using a heat shield the same way that we come back to Earth during the Apollo program, using that heat shield to try and slow down. Unfortunately, with Mars, the atmosphere is thin enough that it's still racing along far too fast. The parachutes that NASA has developed over the years for landing on Mars are some of the strongest and most expensive in the world. As soon as the parachute pops off, obviously that heat shield comes off, and that allows the capsule and the lander to identify exactly where it wants to land. They'll target a particular zone, a particular area, but they'll then try and identify exactly where it wants to land with Sky Crane. They're all familiar with Sky Crane. Hands up who hasn't seen Sky Crane before. It's a rocket-powered crane that delivers a nuclear-powered laser-firing robot on the surface of Mars, because we live in the future now. Essentially, it's under rocket power using retro rockets to lower itself down on the target site. You'll see in a second there, we zoom up into the optics that the essentially Sky Crane and the rover uses to identify Gallup Crater, which is where they landed. Gallup Crater is just this little one down here. Obviously lowering itself down as best it can under retro rockets. Once it gets over the crater in sight, you then lower a 1-ton rover on a cable down onto the surface of Mars under rocket power. They could have potentially taken the crane all the way down to the surface rather than lowering it down on this cable. The problem with that is you're going to cover the rover with a hell of a lot more fumes and fuel, potentially contaminate the sensitive instruments they've got on the surface. You also dig out really great big holes that the rover's then potentially going to get sucked in. Not shown is where the rocket-powered crane explodes in a ball of flames, like 20-30 kilometres away. But that, as I said, is how you essentially deliver a 1-ton rover with a nuclear power pack on the back that fires lasers and cruises around Mars, and it's essentially cool. Someone gets paid to drive that thing. A bunch of people get paid to drive that thing. So that's Sky Crane. That's essentially the way that NASA has managed to land rovers up to 1 ton on Mars. Sky Crane could potentially be used up to about 1.5 ton. But the systems that we're talking about, the life support system that Paragon Space Development Corporation that's just been working on for Mars 1, is weighing in about 7.5 tons. So we need something bigger. We need to come up with a different system to essentially land it. Keep scrolling through. Does anyone know what that is? That's a UFO. NASA has been building and launching UFOs from Hawaii, and they've been slamming into the Atlantic Ocean at like 300 kilometres an hour. Not on purpose. And this yellow thing around the outside, this is essentially NASA's next stage capsule, the Orion capsule that's been developed by Lockheed Martin. The yellow thing around the outside is a gigantic space donut, because they're sending donuts into space now. This is about increasing the cross-section of the heat shield. So the inflatable heat shield that we're talking about here, essentially when you're launching upwards, you want to try and keep the cross-section of your spacecraft as thin as possible so that you're not pushing against the air as you're going up. But when we're trying to land on the surface of Mars, you want to try and make everything as big as possible to try and slow down as much as you can. So again, using an inflatable that will pop out means you can increase that cross-section and be able to potentially slow down sufficiently so the parachutes don't have to work as hard. But that's essentially what we're talking about. There's a couple of other systems been talked about. SpaceX is very, very much focused on using retro rockets all the way down, so rocket power all the way down. As I said, part of the reason why they didn't do that with Sky Crane is they're potentially going to dig out massive holes, and we're then going to have a capsule, 7.5 ton capsule stuck at the bottom of the crater that we're going to try and dig out. I don't know what the next slide is, so we're going to go on to it anyway. But this is these are the habitats that we're potentially going to be living in. There's a lot of discussions going on with Bigelow Aerospace at the moment about developing these different inflatables. You can see in the middle here, it's a bit of an area for repairing your spacesuits, your Mars suits, nice comfy couches, comfy beds, some horrifying green shit that we'll talk about in a minute. If you scroll on to the next one, it all looks very comfy. All looks very, very cozy. Very comfortable. Again, nice group big TV, probably with Xbox and PlayStation for kids. There's no kids on Mars. I'll put them out in the airlock. Big comfy beds, green stuff again. It all has to be pretty comfy because we're not coming back again. Because I'm going to die on the surface of Mars. I'm going to enjoy it. There's been a lot of discussions. Okay. The worst part about it, obviously we're talking about people going to Mars, living out the rest of their lives and that sort of thing, fairly challenging, fairly horrifying. Probably the most horrifying thing for me is that we're going to die vegan. Because we have to grow all our own food. While we'll be landing with about 6 years worth of supplies, I hate army ration packs. I spent 6 years in the military, so if you tasted them, you'll understand it's not food, it's despair. We'll be growing most of our own stuff. So the idea is to try and make the colony as self-sufficient as possible as early as we can. It means that if there is an issue with the resupply, we have our own food. This has been specifically targeted at different times by the media with regard to the MIT study that came out last year at the International Aeronautical Congress. Essentially what was discussed was the plants that we're going to be potentially growing. If we're trying to grow all of our food entirely from plants rather than landing with supplies, the oxygen that would be produced would mean that essentially we have a fire risk that causes eventually have the capsules explode. The reality is quite different, and if anyone still holds on to that belief, I highly encourage you to read the Paragon Space report that they did into the life support system. I had the pleasure of helping write the summary for it. The reality is that we're using slightly different systems from what is occurring on the International Space Station. but if you don't want to find the correct results, then you can always find a nice way to find people dying within 68 days of being on Mars. But anyway, moving on from MIT.
You don't want to plug bacon trees?
I can plug bacon trees. So if anyone's
It's up to
involved,
you.
I mean, I was going to bring it up later on, but I mean, I do love bacon and eggs. So if anyone's involved in microbiology, it would be great to discuss bacon trees with you at some stage. But we'll put that down as an optional extra. Anyway, thank you for knowing my speech so well that
I don't want you to miss out on bacon trees.
Cheers. So the first crew is aiming to land in April 2027. There's a window that opens up every 26 months. So the second crew will be landing about 26 months after we do. However, during that same window that the first crew launches, they'll be sending supplies for the second crew at the same time. So there'll be 26 months on the surface of Mars where the first crew will have access to both the first and the second colony. There'll be about 400% redundancy because we're landing with 200% redundancy in the first place, then doubling that again. So if there are any issues, essentially we have the chance to work with 2 full-size colonies, use spare parts, stop the second crew from launching if we need to, all those sort of things. So again, 400% redundancy is something that is pretty rare in aerospace. Often it's 800%, but that's not true. Anyway, one of the other options that's been discussed, a bit more science fiction, is the idea of sending slightly larger inflatables. Potentially, if we sent something like that, we could possibly be growing trees on Mars, but it is quite science fiction. It's definitely further than where the technology is at. It's definitely further than where anyone's discussing with any seriousness at this stage. More important to us is those first steps, going back to those stepping stone side of things. We have to prove every step of technology as we go, which is why we come back to the 2020 lander. The first technology demonstration mission is the first element where Mars One has a chance to truly prove itself as an aerospace organisation, and it's a chance to essentially demonstrate the technologies that are going to keep people alive on Mars. As part of that, as I said before, in August last year, I was talking about Mars. I was there discussing as part of National Science Week the idea of sending people one way to Mars at a school. And during that, I talked about how there was a university competition running at the time through Mars One, where universities could essentially submit a payload for a lander to Mars. And the AV technician came up to me afterwards and talked about how he was working with the University of Western Australia's Motorsports team. He was actually managing the team, and would there be any opportunity to still be involved with that university? So rather than talk about him in the third person any further, I'll introduce Andre Van Polken, who is my partner in crime, and my housemate at the moment.
Spend 3 days with him. I don't know how they're going to go. Yeah. So that's Josh's story, and I mean, after hearing that, who's kind of keen to go to Mars?
No one.
All right.
Just you, Andre.
I heard it, and I'm like, oh, that was pretty sick. So Josh's story kind of inspired those childhood dreams of being an astronaut and exploring the galaxy and doing all sorts of exciting stuff that I never thought was possible. So at the time, this is kind of where we've gotten to. We've had some great successes with the project, and we'd love to share a bit about our project and how we think we can help out in this narrative of getting to Mars. But for now, we just love to share what we have done and how we went along the way. So, as Josh said, we started off in the Motorsport team. So, myself and these 2 lovely people, we were all involved with building race cars, and at the time, we were of the mindset that, none of us were particularly good at building race cars. The race cars aren't fantastic, but we're able to take the steps that we think are necessary to move towards something that we're not quite sure of yet. So it was this, I like to think of it as the startup mentality. Josh likes Mars One as a startup model sort of organisation, but that idea of you're not 100% sure how you're going to get there, but you do those first steps. So that's what we kind of did. The day after Josh's thing, I kind of, read a bit more into the university proposal, looked at what Mars One had put out, looked at their proposal for the lander and said, this is amazing. They're looking at actually presenting the technology that we have today to the public and saying, look, we have the technology available to do all this amazing stuff on the surface of Mars. They're looking at removing so many of the doubts that realistically uninformed people have about our capability to move to Mars. And I thought that really resonated with me. I've heard we've been talking about going to Mars for 20 years since the moon landing. In the 80s, you said we'll go to Mars in 20 years. So hearing that sort of, we'll go to Mars in 20 years now, I was like, we should probably actually work towards doing that. So being in a situation where we were used to undertaking challenges that we weren't really sure what was going to happen, we said, why not? We'll give it a crack. So we had a look at, like I said, things. Next one. I won't say that yet. We had a look at what was happening in space. So what we found is when they gave us the proposal, they said, this is all the cool stuff we want to do with the lander. And we were fully expecting them to say, we expect the universities to submit ideas along these lines. The problem with that was that they really didn't do that. They said, this is what we're going to be doing with the stuff that we're sending across. We're going to dig up a little bit of soil. We're going to melt that soil, heat up that soil, see if we can extract some water. And then apart from the dimensional constraints, the electrical constraints, weight constraints, that sort of thing, they really didn't put anything in place about what we should have proposed. So we had at this stage about 8 engineers trying to ballpark ideas of what we should send to Mars. And I don't know how many of you have had the pleasure of dealing with engineers, but if you have 8 of them in a room and you're trying to figure out what to send to Mars, it's an interesting conversation, which doesn't lead very well. So we had a look at what was happening in the space industry, what other companies were getting up to. Interplanetary Resources had one of the ideas that we really resonated with, which was they wanted to send a telescope into space. But what they wanted to do was make sure that that had an engagement back to the public. So they wanted to strap a little screen to their telescope that they were launching up. People could crowdfund this project and submit a selfie. Once this was then held into the depths of space, your selfie would pop up on the screen. They take a photo of your selfie in space and send it back. So I just kind of imagine kids around the world with Facebook cover photos of their selfies in space. And I thought that was pretty cool. So we kind of reached out to this engagement sort of idea and realised that that's a terribly profound idea that not a lot of the teams at that point were engaged in. So we came up with the idea of air, art, and Mars. The air part came a bit later, but art, basically, we wanted to send radiation hardened flash memory that everyone from Australia and the world who were touring this week could submit their artwork and their thoughts and ideas about what the future holds for a multiplanetary species. They could submit, a poll on Facebook or a picture on Instagram or a 3-second video about the future on Mars through Vine. We'd collate all of these and put them on some, like I said, radiation hardened memory, send this to Mars, and then when the first people go there in whenever they end up getting there, go to track down the little memory disc, retrieve it all and send it back. So then the kids and the young people and whoever submitted it could then have that connection to so many years ago, I submitted this and that was the very first step to going to Mars. It was just this really nice touch point that came back to that. So that was the first step of the payload. Once we had that in place, we were ballparking with ideas like sending space monkeys, which are basically just sea monkeys that you force into space. Tardigrades, which are amazing and that can't die, which is really good for sending them to Mars. And it's all sorts of ideas like this, and we were really inspired by what's happening in the space industry, but also what the other teams had already submitted. So we came into the competition fairly late, and we were looking at all the other teams and going, oh, cool, we can copy this, add on the art time capsule, and we'll be definitely better if we win. And then we realised that let's pull this back to the fundamentals of what the lander is trying to achieve. They're fundamentally trying to communicate that we have the technology available to us today to pursue life on Mars. We realised that they wanted to extract water, so they wanted to tell people in a really simple and clear way that there's water on Mars. And so we said, well, what else is really fundamental to survival on Mars? And that's air. So why would we not try and communicate to everyone in a very simple way that we have the current technology available to generate air on Mars? Through the depth that is our engineering studies, we came to the Year 8 science experiment of electrolysis, which we have replicated this week with pencils and the 9-volt battery. So luckily for Josh and his oxygen needing individualness, we've progressed from the pencils and the 9-volt battery, and we proposed to send a small electrolysis module to Mars to take the water that they source. We can then show really easily and simply we can generate oxygen on the surface of Mars. And we've been successful in this competition. We would have been the first people to do such a thing. NASA will explain later has plans to do this. If Mars 1 had started this timeline we were selected, we would have been beating NASA by 3 years. So we did catch a lift, so we didn't do the whole thing as much as they did, but it's a claim. Anyway, so we entered this competition November last year. I don't know what the next slide is. Crap.
Yeah.
So we ended up with Helena. We entered this submission, and then that was November of last year. And then the December, they took the cutoff of 30 entrants worldwide. They cut that off to 10 finalists. We were lucky enough to be the only entrant from the Southern Hemisphere to make it into the final 10, which was way further than we thought we'd get, and mildly terrifying, because it meant we had to do the next round, which we weren't at all prepared for, which was basically just public marketing. They wanted it to be as much as possible chosen by the people. I don't know how much you get to know about Mars 1, but they don't want to be like the Netherlands mission to Mars or the US mission to Mars. They want it to be collective. So they wanted to make the decision of which university entrant went to be a collective decision. So one of the final stages of selection was this public poll, which we tried all sorts of crazy tactics, and in the end we ended up about 4th overall, which was way further than we thought, and we got beaten by letters. So that sounds sexy. So in the end, the competition has selected to send a lettuce to Mars. They're going to grow the first plant or organic matter on Mars. So that's exciting. Josh might comment on that at the end. But that's basically where we've gotten to with our payload. For a team of engineers that really had no idea going into it, it's been an amazing journey. We've learned so much along the way. We're going to share a bit more about the technical details, about how we kind of went through the process. But that's basically it. Cheers. So this is Rowan. Rowan was the technical lead for the entire team. At the same time, he was the technical lead for the race car that year, for the yellow one, and at the same time, he was the technical lead for an electric race car. So the man that doesn't like a lot of sleeping, and is an amazing engineer, and he's going to share a bit about his project.
Cool. So I was looking at all of the sort of problems that we were going to come into technically, while Andre was sort of marketing it and trying to get as much backing as what he could, figure out how we're going to be funding this and all the other little problems that I don't really like dealing with. So looking at the sort of payload design, Mars has a few problems that aren't. Well, doing electrolysis on Mars is a bit different to doing it on Earth. There's a bit of a pressure difference between the two planets and a little bit of temperature difference. So we'll be talking about that a little bit more in terms of how electrolysis will need to work, and I'll sort of focus more on the little model that's over in the corner. So from looking at the picture, which is similar to the model, except we don't have the 2 oxygen and hydrogen containers, the model on the screen has got sort of an actuator which pressurizes the cylinder. So you'll be sending water from the lander into the pressurized capsule, electrolyzing it, and then pumping it into storage containers. And as Josh mentioned at the beginning, before we go to Mars, we need to sort of know where we're going to be landing and where we can be harvesting the most resources. So the Mars 1 booklet that we were provided to design our thing around mentioned that we're going to be landing somewhere in the yellow boxes near the top, which has got a lot more blue and a lot less red. So the blue is sort of trenches in the Martian surface, which there is a higher chance to find water in. The lander is, in the document, the lander was expected to have about 150 by 30 kilometre ellipse where they would be aiming to harvest water from. So this is sort of an overview of what the lander looked like from what we were provided. The big long number 2 down the middle, that's the arm that digs the dirt and sort of sends it through an oven, evaporates water off of it, and then stores it in the box which is labelled 1. The university payload is labelled 8 on that, so you can see why we chose you're doing sort of an electrolysis experiment. As we're right next to where the water is being stored, we thought we might as well just plug into that, have the water come straight from where it's being produced into our payload, which is where we can electrolyse it. So we thought that was sort of a really intuitive, really simple way to be further developing what Mars One's already proposed. Number 3 is the fold-out or the roll-out solar array, which Josh was talking about, which is sort of a flexible solar panel that they were hoping to be testing. And number 4, which is sort of a camera to sort of analyse where the lander is and where it wants to be digging water up from. And then the other little payloads around at 5, 6, and 7 were just additional little science experiments that could have been proposed to Mars One. So this is what our payload was sort of dimensioned to fit inside of. It's about the size of a shoebox at 370 by 130 by 200 millimeters. So the model that we have over there is about a 1-to-1 scale. We were given a few sort of constraints. So we had about, the whole lander had about 700 watts. And we had about 127 kilobytes of data that we could be sending back each day. So we tried to keep our little system as small and as light and sort of as effective at producing data as what we could. Yeah, so that's sort of just an overview of what we have on the model. So when we'll sort of plug it in at the end, you can see how it sort of works and come up and touch it and have a look. The idea was to be sending water in through the tube on the right, sending it into the pressure chamber, electrolyzing the water, pressurizing it, electrolyzing it, and then sending it into a hydrogen and oxygen tank where the electrolysis has sort of separated the water molecules into the two different gases, and then having an oxygen sensor at the top which will be reading out how much oxygen is being produced, and then that's the data that we'll be sending back to Earth. Cool, and Claire's going to talk a little bit now about the sort of electrolysis side. She was the lead electrolysis engineer for the project, and she was the one that sort of gave me all the problems that I had to deal with for the little part.
So for those of you who kind of forgotten early high school chemistry, electrolysis is just the separation of a water molecule into oxygen and hydrogen gas using an electric current that's passed through it. So yeah, pretty simple science experiment that you can do at home in the classroom on Earth, but not so easy when you're on Mars. The reason being is that the temperature and pressure on Mars means that it lies below water's trickle point. So what does that mean? It means that water can only it's really hard for it to exist in any form other than solid or vapor. So in order to get it to a liquid form so that we can zap it with some gray electricity, we need to elevate or raise the pressure and kind of heat it up as well. So that's what happens inside the chamber. So you heard Rowan talk about pressurizing and things like that. That's just so we can get it to a point where the experiment can actually happen. So yeah, this is a pretty critical experiment, as you can imagine, for astronauts. Hey, yeah, let's go to Mars where the atmosphere is really rich in carbon dioxide, not in oxygen. So there are other technologies available currently, or that people are developing currently. So NASA's working on getting oxygen from carbon dioxide using the little MOXIE experiment that they want to send on their 2020 lander or something like that. But we thought as a kind of alternative to that method to use the water from the adjacent payload, to generate oxygen this way. Not that kind of far-fetched, because this is the same technology that they use on the International Space Station. So yeah, it's just applying this technology that we already fully developed and placing on a different planet.
Josh, you want to summarize stuff?
Right.
Well, yeah. So that's
Should we bring the table out?
As I said right at the start, this is all about stepping stones. This is all about very much precursor technologies. I actually spoke about this at Space Up last year in Adelaide, and one of the interesting things that came out from one of the astrobiology lecturers was turn around and going, why are we wasting payload space on doing something that we already know that it works? But ultimately we have to test and from an engineering perspective, we have to prove that these technologies actually work. So it seems like an extraordinarily simple piece of technology. It you'll see in a minute, quite an extraordinarily simple piece of payload. But at the end of the day, uniquely demonstrating that these technologies actually work so that from an engineering perspective we can say with some assurance that it will actually work. So the team have been fantastic from start to finish. They've all worked incredibly hard on all of this. And it is a bit of a travesty that we didn't go further. Andre pointed out an interesting thing regarding the team that did actually win. Again, they worked exceptionally hard. They were a great team that were very supportive. Part of the reason why they did get through was public vote. People like the idea of sending plant and animal life to Mars. And we did talk about space monkeys and sea monkeys and things like that. The reason why we didn't go ahead with that was we're not entirely sure that the UN is going to necessarily approve launching biological material to the surface of Mars. And every other spacecraft that's gone so far has to comply with the United Nations COS Part 4B regulations, saying you don't send biological material to the surface of Mars. So the reason why we went with a totally inorganic payload, one that doesn't have sea monkeys, doesn't have plant life, anything like that, was because we don't necessarily believe the UN is going to necessarily approve that payload. So there is possibly an opportunity, and the three that came in ahead of us are all biological experiments. So if they don't get approved, there's a possibility that we'll still get room on that payload. But yeah, otherwise I think we are going to ask and answer questions. So jump in first.
The idea to put people on Mars, so
Eventually,
they put biological.
But again, this is and that is the ultimate goal. And humans are disgusting, so we're going to be taking a lot of bacteria and all sorts of stuff. Andre's been working with me the last 3 days, so he's aware of what some of my personal hygiene habits are. We're going to be taking parts and things like that regardless. If we're taking people, it is very true. But again, it's a stepwise process. At the moment, the regulations, what is required for sending spacecraft is quite stringent. You need to decontaminate everything. The hope is that there'll be small steps as we go. If we're getting closer and closer to sending humans, then they need to start relaxing the regulations or change the compliance that's required. We aren't sure they're ready to do that just yet. So we went with more inorganic material, but hopefully they will change it. It would be great to see plants, lettuce, all sorts of stuff growing on the surface of Mars. But we weren't sure they would be able to improve it so early on. But yeah, any other questions, I suppose, for any of us?
Did you come up with some cool ideas of what to do with the hydrogen?
Absolutely. So hydrogen makes brilliant rocket fuel.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So that part?
Absolutely. So we had a deep look into it, and Ron might be able to explain a bit more, but basically it came down to the restrictions of the payload.
Yeah, to actually make rocket fuel using the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it takes a huge amount of energy, and because the whole lander is running off just solar power, we weren't going to be able to get the energy to be able to actually make anything with the hydrogen, so we decided to let it out.
It was a bit more of a self-sacrificial, so the whole lander itself only has a lifetime of 90 days, and within that, obviously, it's all shared energy supply. So our theory approach to that was, rather than pursue this avenue and potentially display this and communicate that we've made hydrogen, we basically said that can be assumed if we did electrolysis with the effect of the oxygen. Rather than trying to mix that into methane and waste all the electricity on that, we're just going to forego that part of our budget and contribute that back into the full land's potential.
Could be cool if you donated the hydrogen to another payload, maybe.
And one of the things that we all talked about was while we were developing our private payload in isolation, there's 7 other payloads on board. They all play different roles, and there's 3 that are going to be provided from different areas. It would be great to be involved in the integration process to work out who's doing what and see if we can modify experiments and work with them about. But at this stage, it's not reality.
Also, gravity to the same degree with concentrations of oxygen outside from the equation.
So, I'll repeat it for you here. The question was, does Mars have enough gravity to retain oxygen outside, essentially? So you're talking necessarily about terraforming, releasing the oxygen out, trying to produce a breathable atmosphere eventually on Mars. Is that kind of correct? Yep. The answer really is we don't know. And the biggest thing that actually protects the atmosphere, particularly here on Earth, is our magnetic field. By having a magnetosphere, it actually protects and retains that atmosphere, because otherwise it just gets stripped away. Mars still gets bathed from the solar wind, so any oxygen, any kind of gases that are possibly being produced are going to get stripped away by that. So you could, very, very super science fiction stuff now, but what has been discussed at different times has been the idea of creating a moon, a large asteroid or something like that, trying to put an asteroid into orbit around Mars and try and restart the core. But again, super science fiction stuff. The reality is, without a magnetosphere, any atmosphere is going to get stripped away. So, gravity is less of a role, it's more to do with the magnetic field. So, but it would be amazing. Super science fiction stuff. Right.
Are you scared of me or something?
Sorry? No, I'm just amused.
So what was NASA that actually developed a rover that was going to use lunar soil and actually convert lunar soil into 1% efficient solar panel. Yet it would power itself and what it made. Does the Martian soil hold enough silicon to do this? And is it worthwhile doing on Mars?
The best results I've heard in terms of geology and things like that is that there's substantial amounts of silicon, and that would be amazing to be able to do that. Don't know the grade of the silicon. We don't necessarily have the heating facilities or furnaces and things like that, but it could be a precursor technology.
Again, but you know, NASA already did it. They already figured it out
on how to do it.
Yeah, like a little robot. So aside from the port of the solar power difference, I see no reason why you couldn't do it.
And it'd be great. It would be fantastic to do it. It's an interesting one. A lot of people really jar with the philosophy of what Mars One's talking about, where Mars One turns around and says there's no new technology, but for a lot of people that means that everything can be pulled off the shelf straight away. There's no new science involved with what Mars One's trying to do, but they still have to develop the hardware. There's still stuff that needs to be done. So what they're trying to do, they're focusing on the flexible thin film solar panels to try and land them, rather than going with anything more experimental. So yeah, that's kind of without pushing the limits too far, and upsetting the engineers there might see even further. That's the kind of, but it's a great idea. It'd be a fantastic idea, but it's not currently in the mission plan.
Great. Yeah. What remains on your path to getting in the final 24, and what are your rating chances?
My chances are 1 in 25 right now, and I'm sticking with that. And if I do manage to get through into the 24 that are being selected September next year, my chances will then be 1 in 6. I don't rate my chances in high. I briefly mentioned it before about 6 years in the military. I served with the British Commandos for about 12 months, and we had so many young men come through who were determined, they were super fit, they were super healthy, they had the right mindset, and they were saying right from the start, I am going to go through. I'm going to make it through the 8 months of training, I'm going to earn that Green Beret, I'm going to be a British Commando. And 2 months later, they were going home. So I genuinely believe that if you're embarking on something like this, you can't assume that you are going to get through to the end until you're actually doing it. I might get into that 24, start doing the isolation training and find I'm actually the wrong person for it. But I'll never know that until I get a shot.
Speaking of isolation training, do you have a plan?
I'm living in a shared house right now with a few people, and that is a challenging environment enough as it is. There's not much for me to do at this stage. It's about getting through September next year. I'm keeping myself healthy and fit. I am doing more research and working with these guys and doing talks and that sort of thing. But there's not really much anyone else can do until you get through that stage and you get tested. So the idea is September next year, Mars One flies all 100 of us to one area. That area is still being worked out. We're kind of keeping it secret at this stage. Iceland has been talked about. Florida's been talked about. All sorts of places been talked about. We get all of this together, see how we work together in groups. They're going to be getting rid of 10, 15 people per day, cutting down very, very quickly over 4 or 5 days. They'll then get about 40 of us together. They'll put us in isolation for about 10 to 11 days. At the end of those 10 to 11 days, we sit down for a 4 to 6 hour interview to see whether or not we're going to get into that final 24 and that's select from there. The people who get into those 24 then become full-time employees right then and then, and they start the training immediately. So it all rolls on very, very quickly once it starts. But you never know if you're the right person until you put in the right environment to find out. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. It's an interesting journey to be on. How are we going for time? No one has any clue. Just roll on, do whatever you like. Got any more?
Curious, you down select for 24, so then you have 6. I mean, is there a plan for a Mars mission too?
So yeah, one of the last slides that I had was talking about those next stages.
Yeah.
Mars one is only going to select 24 people and form what's called an astronaut core, in the same way that when NASA announced the Gemini 9, the Gemini 7, they announced 7 astronauts and they were the astronaut core. And then they added to that astronaut core with Payload and things like that, and announcing different classes and stages. Mars 1 is going to announce 24 people that are going to become their astronaut candidates. They're going to train them up. They'll work to see who works together most efficiently. They'll start breaking them up into 6 different teams, and then start seeing which teams work most efficiently. And essentially, one of those teams of 4 are going to be the ones that go. Chances are, if you spent that long training over 10 years, you're going to be, and you don't get selected to go, one of the near teams who was very close to being the right ones to go the first time around will be Mars 2, or Mars 3, or Mars 4, or maybe someone will drop out and get sick, or have a child, or change their decision, all sorts of different things. But they keep a pool of astronauts trained, ready to go, and then they choose the ones who are going to work most efficiently together.
Is there any chance of getting the Helena payload on any other Mars 1 flights? Is that something in your near future you guys are going to have?
Other landers on the
Yeah.
as well.
The Mars 1 lander in its own right was kind of special in that it was almost 100% there to communicate that fundamental technology. It was just to drive the fundamental technology to communicate that this simple technology works. A lot of the recent landers like Curiosity and that are much more advanced scientific research on them, so whether or not it kind of fits in very well with the stated goals of those rovers, and if they're willing to sacrifice the energy budget or weight budget for these sorts of goals, is, I guess, really the only considering factor. If they would, absolutely, we'd love to. At this stage, we've gotten as far as we can with the budget given to us and the time restraints that we have. So it's a long way off being flight ready and fully integrated to the system. So if we did, there's a lot more work on it, and it's a discussion for the team, but we haven't really discussed the idea too much.
To be honest with you, we were surprised that National Science Week gave us a lot of money to travel around the country and talk about it. We thought the project was pretty much done. Without, and this, I don't know if you guys share this opinion or not, but the reality is we're demonstrating quite a simple payload, simple technology, and folks like, particularly NASA, but ESA does it as well, there's a lot of money locked up in the research side of things and testing more advanced technologies rather than demonstrating something super simple. If they're going to go to the trouble to land something on the surface of Mars, they usually try to do something that's pretty advanced. So MOXIE is the one that Claire talked about with the 2020 lander for NASA. That's trying to produce oxygen out of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere straight away. Far more complicated. Probably a lot of research going into it. Clinically, it's more challenging, more difficult, rather than just a year 8 science experiment going to Mars. So, I like to send stuff that's more complicated than what we're talking about.
Has Mars One actually released any information about their consistent?
I know that it's being discussed at the moment. They haven't released anything publicly.
They don't have a preliminary design.
So this 2020 lander is using the 2008 Venus lander, so it's using the same infrastructure for that. So that you're talking about the heavier side of things. So the life support system that Paragon just designed is 7.5 tonne. As a result of that, Mars One have immediately gone back to Lockheed Martin to start talking about the EDL side of things. That's very recent. That is literally in the last 6 weeks that that's good. So yeah, but this it's a common question. A lot of people turn around and saying, "How are you going to land on Mars?" And it's like, well, we've just worked out how much we have to land on Mars. Now it's going to take time for us to work it out. The Paragon report that's just come out was commissioned 2.5 years ago. So it's interesting that people hold the standard for Mars One because they're a private organisation, as opposed to the amount of time that sort of big governmental organisations time to research things. It's a different attitude, but the same problem. So.
Just wondering, how you were talking about settling on top of Mars. Have you ever discussed about going below some of them?
So it's an interesting one. Mole people. This is, again, you let me down, man. There's a line here and we forgot it. It's an interesting one because we are actually going underground. So while we're landing all this stuff on the surface of Mars, it's still a fairly serious radiation environment because of that lack of magnetosphere we talked about before. So one of the first priorities, essentially, is to try and cover those environments with soil. So we're not going digging underground, but we are putting the ground on top of this. Mars One's rovers are going to be essentially digging up the soil to try and get the water out of it in the first place. So rather than dumping it back in the hole they dug, they're going to dump it on top of the chambers and on top of the habitats to try and provide some radiation protection. So yeah, it's very much what we're talking about. So there's one more.
So why SpaceX out of the picture?
It's not necessarily out of the picture. It's just that the best. Again, a lot of this sort of stuff goes on quietly behind closed doors. Different negotiations. It's that I don't believe SpaceX is out of the picture at all. It's just that chances are they'll probably turn around and say, "Come back to us when you've got more money." And that's an understandable attitude to take. I don't think SpaceX is out of it at all. And I think SpaceX has a stated goal of trying to get people to Mars in the first place. They may not want to see someone else do that. I don't think they would get in the way of seeing someone else do that. Ultimately, Elon Musk wants to see people living on the surface of Mars, and if he can work together with an organisation trying to achieve that, I'm sure he will. But at this stage, there's no public discussions going on with SpaceX, but there have been some public discussions going on with Lockheed Martin. I believe Boeing as well. So, I think we might leave it at that, if that's alright, folks. Thank you.